Hello, and welcome to Remainders, where we talk all things movies. My name is Patrick. Darren, good to see you, buddy. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Patrick. Nice to see you too. And let me just say that I do not plan on ratting on you this episode for anything that you've done in your life. I don't want to have that weight following me around all day.
I gotta tell you, man, in this story of, as you mentioned, a little bit of ratting in this movie, it makes you start thinking about your friends and, what they would do in similar situations. So I am very happy to hear that. I appreciate that, but
yeah, I mean, with the parallel of you being like just as Irish as the guy in the main character, I was like, I wonder if Patrick picked this movie for a reason. But yeah, I can't wait to talk about it. Can't wait to dig in.
Absolutely, yeah. So we are talking 1935's The Informer from the infamous John Ford, early movie from John Ford. So, and a lot of Irish goings on in this movie. And yeah, it is definitely a movie that I've loved for a long time. My Irish heritage is not a small part of it, but also loving the early John Ford. So happy that we get our chance to talk about this. Has been on my list for a while. So very excited to kind of see what your thoughts are. Now, have you seen this movie before?
I have never seen this film before. This is my first time.
I wasn't sure. Like, I kind of made the assumption. I mean, it's a relatively well-known John Ford. So I didn't know. So, but I'm so happy to hear that and kind of excited because I always love the reaction episodes kind of the most, where it's one of those, checking out the first time.
Yeah, because again, my reaction sometimes is just like, I can't believe that this is a favorite of yours. Like, watching it thinking, oh, this is more right up like my alley because it's an older film, more, back in black and white. And, I don't always, and maybe our listeners feel this way after listening to 60 episodes. This is the 60th episode today. Maybe they don't realize that, you do have this wide range of all of the decades and favorite films, because it's not usually your go-to, I would think, right?
I'm usually talking about the 80s creature features first. That's usually where my brain goes in terms of conversation. But yes, as I've mentioned in a couple of previous episodes, sometimes the perception is I don't appreciate older movies as much. Classic Hollywood has plenty of bangers that I absolutely love, and this is definitely one of them. So, I
mean, Witness for the Prosecution was another one that you threw me out of left field, and I was like, really? And I hadn't seen that film either. So it's cool. This film, The Informer, man, there's a lot to say. I mean, like you said, in early John Ford, and I know a lot of listeners out there, and myself included, love John Ford and know, more of his more notable works, more the buzz movies of his, but I don't think many people, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think many people think instantly about John Ford when they think of The Informer.
Yeah, I'm not it's certainly not in the top tier of like when you hear the first movies that are mentioned, but I mean, I was looking at a lot of lists of like the best John Ford movies, for example, and I mean, this was on pretty much all of those lists. So it's definitely noted, if not the most popular of his movies, because it is like an early one. It's with the RKO Productions. I guess he made like 4 or 5 movies with that, like early in his career before he kind of moved on and probably gained a little bit more ability to kind of do what he wants. But this movie is interesting because it seems to be like kind of the most stylish of all of his movies, just kind of the most moody and expressionist, and that's not something you see with a lot of his movies later. I mean, I'm not a completionist by any means for John Ford, but much of his later ones are certainly not as dark as this one, and I think that's probably why I like it the most. So
yeah, definitely got a little film noir feel to this, but that could also be a lot to do with the subject matter, then also the black and white, and it's characters kind of being in this dark place, and I also think it has to do a lot with like what you said there about expressionism. I mean, a lot of this film, you're looking at people's reactions, you're looking at their faces, and maybe that's because of the fact that this is like an early, starting to get into talking pictures and all that kind of stuff. It's just the transition from silent films to talking.
Yeah, I know. It is kind of crazy to think that like 1935, was really kind of at the very beginning of like sound pictures with actual talking. And I mean, it's just we were so, even though it's like, you know, this not even 100 years ago. I mean, that can seem like a long time, but also it's just a blip in terms of humanity. So it's like nothing. But to see how far like the medium of film has gone, but all the imprints are there early on with it. So, but yeah, I mean, for the listener, I just want to give a little synopsis. The Informer tells the story of Gypo Nolan during the Irish War of Independence in the 1920s, where British and Irish powers are deep in battle for power. A disgraced man of war, Gypo is tempted to turn his friend into the British occupation army for a mere 20 pounds and a plan to escape to America. But when he does turn his oldest pal in for a few bucks, the first place he manages to go to is the local pub to flub the memory away with whiskey. Like we said, a pivotal form for John Ford, The Informer is moody, dark, atmospheric, and dripping with drunken Irish remorse. So that's a big reason why I love this movie so much. So, but yeah. So first thoughts. I mean, did you like this a lot? I mean, we obviously kind of got into like this influential aspect of it, but I mean, I'm just going to say it. Kyle McLaglen is the main reason why I love this movie so much.
You mean Victor? I'm sorry. Victor. Of course, you're thinking Kyle because he's more a current day actor. But yeah, yeah.
Victor McLaglen. Sorry. I was been watching Twin Peaks lately, obviously. So yeah. Victor McLaglen's performance as Gypo Nolan is one of my favorite performances of all time. This is kind of the character study. That is what I live for, you know, light on plot, but heavy on character reactions and just following a central character and seeing how he reacts to the world and everything that's thrown at them.
Yeah. King Gypo, huh?
King Gypo. I mean, his drunken performances and celebration of the self is fantastic.
I mean, maybe we'll get into it if this guy was really a drunk in real life, because he plays a pretty good one. I think my first reaction is like loving what a brute this character is. You know, every time you see him on screen, it's just kind of like this big, dumb animal almost, you know, and like just, you know, when you're done with a glass, throwing it on the ground until it breaks, throwing a fucking rock through a window to tell people you're taking off. And then whenever anybody comes up to you just to talk to you, you just do the face plant, you know, like you just hit them in the face, like not even hit them. He just like pushes them over and then they fly 30 feet backwards. It's amazing. So I kind of love, I don't know, I just love watching that about the character, you know, that it was played so well by Victor McLaglen. And yeah, again, I don't think there's too much in this film, at least for me. You do feel for him a little bit, but for the most part, it's kind of like you have to understand what everybody's fighting for too, like the plot. And sometimes in these older films, it's a little harder to gauge that, or you have to pay a lot of attention to the story to understand it. So I think you can feel more sympathetic to the character if you understand what's happening in the film. But for the most part, if you look at it just on the surface, it's like, fuck this guy. You know, he sold out his friend for this cash, which he's just going out and drinking it all away anyway. Like, what was it all for?
Right. Yeah. So I think, I mean, just like a general history lesson. I mean, it's like in Ireland in the 1920s, the primary conflict, as it's been for a long time, is between Irish independence and British occupation. I mean, that's kind of the crux of like what the war is, British occupation in the country of Ireland, and then the other side, the IRA, which is what Gypo and Frankie McPhillip, they're the sides of the Irish Republican Army. They're the sides fighting for Irish independence. So it's obviously more complicated than that, but that's basically the central conflict that's been going on in Ireland for a long time.
Well, I think that's helpful for sure, because I don't think a lot of people, well, at least myself, I was speaking for myself, I don't really get all of that. You know, I mean, I get it on a surface level, but like to understand the history of all that, it's a little difficult. So you kind of have to know that going in to understand the characters and what they're fighting for.
Yeah. And I think I read it's like making this movie in the 30s. I think it's purposely a little vague for obvious reasons, because they just didn't want to be like too political of a movie where you could actually still get in trouble for stuff like that.
Oh, right.
Where if like you actually just include like too many details, it can be kind of weaponized, I guess. So I think that's why they kind of keep it a little vague. You just kind of just by watching this movie, you just get a sense that it's, I think Frankie even says it's like, I think it is Gypo's character. He says like, the Irish don't want me, the British don't want me. So he's kind of like a disgraced character. And that's, why he's down in his luck and he ends up doing what he's doing, selling out his best friend.
Yeah. And you definitely get that at some point, because it's like, he has no money, like, and he makes this decision, and you can understand that at some point that he makes the decision, not understanding the implications that it would have following getting that cash. Like I don't think he had any clue his friend was going to get killed, Yeah. He just kind of like, okay, he'll get in trouble, but at least I'll have £20 in my pocket. And it'll help me out in this really difficult time. So that's where you can kind of see the sympathy for him. Everybody's had issues where they don't have too much cash, and they need to do what they've got to do to get by. This is a moral conundrum,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, Gypo's definitely in poverty. This is deep poverty in Ireland at the time. How much do you think 20 pounds in 1922, which is when this movie is set, in Ireland is equivalent to today?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you said for just at the beginning when you were talking about, you're like for just 20 pounds. And I was thinking to myself, like, well, was that just 20 pounds or was that like a vast sum of money? That's a good point that you have here, because I don't know. It sounds small, right? But to them, it would be probably huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the circumstances. I mean, I got the number right here, so that's why.
Okay. Well, yeah. Go ahead. Well, of course you do. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the equivalent of like 1,400 pounds today, which is $1,800. $1,823 to be precise. So you're selling out your best friend that you fought in wars with and had each other's back for $1,800 and some change. So yeah, I mean, that kind of like tells you a lot. It's like, if that is like, I think the female character at the beginning, they're looking at the sign where it says $10 to get to America, and she said, it might as well be $1 million. So obviously that $900 is as close to $1 million as it is to them. So I mean, it just shows you the desperation, and but also like it's $1,800 is nothing, but if you are in poverty, it's something. But at the same time, $1,800 for selling out your best friend is a pitiful sum. So,
yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for doing that research to figure it out, because I never understand exchange rates.
That's what the beauty of Google is, and AI these days. So it wasn't that difficult.
But at the same time, understanding the circumstances of what it was like to live in that era, and what that cash would have meant to them is a big point, because of course any bit of money is a huge deal. And he's got, I love that they're like, once they're on to him, like the Republican Guard, and they realize like, oh, he's probably the informer, that they're kind of counting the money that he's spending or that he's giving away. And they realize, oh, it adds up to 20, and they're like, okay, this is proof he's the guy who sold him out.
Yeah, I mean, so the bulk of this movie is basically just a hangout movie of Gypo drinking and spending the money away, and that's really what I kind of like about it. I mean, we've described the plot pretty thoroughly. I mean, and in terms of how simple it is, but then the majority of the movie is him going from bar to bar, pub to pub, party to party, drinking it all away, throwing all the money that he just got away, and then like you said, the British occupation slowly piecing it together and realizing, the IRA piecing it together that he was the one that gave away their comrade, and so that is largely, again, it's the performance of McLaglen, and then just kind of the hangout vibe is just what I love about this movie so much. I keep on revisiting it. You mentioned the physicality of Victor. So he was like a semi-professional boxer
That makes
before
sense.
acting. Yeah, he actually fought Jack Johnson, got his ass whooped from Jack Johnson, but was definitely in competition with him. So, like you were saying, the physicality of Victor's performance is very clear because it's very real and sincere. And from what I understand, he was a pretty heavy drinker in real life. And I didn't see it in any recent research, but I know I've heard like stories of like John Ford. This is back in the day when directors were way more shit crazy with their techniques. He would actually switch up Victor's schedule, knowing that he would be hungover in the morning. So he'd be like, oh, you don't have to work till 2. And then switch it up that day. It'd be like, oh, you got to be here at 6 a.m, knowing that he'd be hungover, sweating his ass off, given the drunken performance that was needed for this movie.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really good knowledge. Because I could see it happening. He's so convincing as a drunk. You feel hungover watching the goddamn movie.
He's just like sweating the whole time. It's so fun to fucking watch him in this role because it's such a train wreck, and you see so many different emotions with that physicality that you were mentioning. It's awesome. I mean, he won Best Actor in the Oscars this year, so for a reason.
Oh shit. Okay, so again, I didn't know. 35 Best Actor, Victor McLaglen, huh?
Yes, I mean this one. It was nominated for Best Picture. Victor won Best Actor. He actually beat one of my favorites, Charles Lawton, that year. And John Ford, I think he won Best Director for John Ford and Best Screenplay. So this one is kind of
dark on this. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing. This movie has kind of fallen off in terms of presence, like in the last 50 years, I'd say. Like in the first like 40 years after this, it's still like very remembered. But like you're right, like we mentioned at the beginning, this is not one that you hear immediately in at least Ford's biography.
Yeah. I don't know why that would be, but it's possible because it has, so much to do with like this, like I said, the story of like this Irish independence and stuff that maybe is just a little too narrow for certain people to understand. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I could be wrong. If you're out there listening to the podcast, I'd love to know your thoughts on, the relevance of this film and its lasting legacy. That's just a lot of times what we talk about on this is like, why are certain movies falling under the radar, or why are they popular? And I like to discuss that,
Oh yeah. I mean, that's because that's just the study of culture. Why some movies resonate and some don't. It could be a quality issue, but it also could just be a subject matter issue.
Or just people talking about it, right? I mean, that's why we do this podcast, because like we want people to know about movies we think are kick-ass. And for whatever reason, if someone tells me, oh, you got to watch this film, or it's on some top 10 list or whatever it might be, you're more prone to watch it, of course, especially if it's from 1935 and you're like, that's a long time ago,
Yeah. Unless you get one of those shit recommendations and then you distrust that person forever. So that happens sometimes too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I have a few people on my list that I feel that with. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure I've given bad recommendations, or at least it was interpreted that way. Mm-hmm. All right. So he's getting so drunk that he's yelling his name out in public. Yelling Gypo has been something that's been in my mind just randomly over the years, ever seeing this movie. He gets so drunk that he's straight up screaming his name in celebration to cover up the remorse. And I want to ask you, have you ever been so drunk that you yelled your own name out in public in celebration of yourself? So
no, but goddamn it, I have to at some point. At some point here, I have to. It's an amazing stuff, because you're right. Like that's the other thing that you see in this actor is what's going on in his mind. And maybe again, it has to do with like expression. I don't see the expressions as much on him as I do on other characters around him. Yeah. More for him, it's like there's subtleties in like what you think is going on inside his mind.
Right.
Because the whole time he knows he's the informer and he's conflicted on what he did, but he's trying to get as drunk as possible to forget it and try and have a good time. And like, maybe it'll just go away, but of course it won't. And he
is legit having a good time. Gypo!
Yeah.
Like he's
Right.
actually yelling it, and you can see it. It's genuine for that, for that 2 to 5 minutes of right after taking a shot. It's genuine in that second.
And that's why it's like so great, because in those scenes, like buying everybody the fish and chips, you could tell that that's genuinely the guy he is. He's not the guy you saw sell out his friend. He's really the guy who wishes that he could always have the money to buy people fish and chips. I mean, don't we all? But at the same time, like he's a generous, probably kind-hearted, sweet guy who has a fucking drinking problem and sold out his friend because he's broke and needs the money. I mean, it's sympathetic in those scenes. By the way, just talking about that scene for a second, I gotta talk about my favorite shot in the film is maybe you feel the same way because I saw you perk up there. He's giving everybody like, hey, it's all on me, fish and chips. And then the camera goes through the crowd to the window where you see, gosh, I forget his name, Boyo, I forget his name, but the guy who's in the Republic, who's watching him and supposed to follow him. The scene and the shot is so beautifully done. It goes through that crowd right to the window where he's being watched, because it automatically for the person watching the film, you're in this like kind of fun party that's happening here. And then, you're like, oh, but let's not forget this guy fucking killed somebody and these guys are on to him. This is some danger here.
Yeah, no, that is a great shot. I always like there's one where I think it's right before that scene. When he's leading into the fish and chip shop, the pub, and he just knocked out the guy, the British army guy, and they cut to a scene when he's like smoking a cigarette and he's just going like this, like acting like like you could see that he feels like he's king of the world for a second, because he defended himself and the crowd, and then was about to go buy everybody fish and chips. And it is one of those dark expressionist shots, and again, it's mostly Victor's face the whole time, and it's awesome. So like that whole like 10-minute stretch I love, and I remember that shot that you're pointing out, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot of like stuff there where it's kind of like that's culminating in his altered state of mind, where he thinks, okay, he's drunk enough to think that everything's okay, and king of the world, as they're calling him. And then, by the way, this is the biggest question of this episode. Who would be who in the role of Gypo, and then his little lackey guy who knows he's like got to be on board with Gypo and calling him the king because he's got money? There's such a great little like dynamic that happens at that point in the film. So who would you be, Gypo, or would I be Gypo in this movie?
Oh my God. That's I don't know, man.
I'll tell you this much: neither role would be very enviable.
I was going to say, like, I don't see an answer being like, oh yeah, that makes sense, or being satisfied with that. Yeah, I got nothing.
I'd like to say if you got hammered, you'd be the King Gypo, and I'd be the guy being like, yeah. Come on, guys, let's support King Patrick over here, and he's going to give us all his money.
I often refer to myself as King Patrick, not out loud, but in my mind. So, just give you a little insight to my psyche. Well, sometimes you just got to.
Shocker, so do I.
You just got to build yourself up sometimes, when you need it the most.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like, when he's buying all those fish and chips, I kind of always see that as like, oh, by the way, like, how good are those fish and chips in that?
I know, in that little like a
brown
newspaper
paper cone.
Yeah,
it's like the brown paper cone. It looks just a little bit of grease.
The malt on it and shit.
Yeah, just a little bit of grease on the side. It looks so good on my end. I've always kind of seen like him spending all that money is like his surface level way of like atonement.
Yes,
and
of course.
That's kind of the basically where the rest of the movie goes, and just him realizing that he needs atonement at any cost, because the guilt he feels is too consuming, and it just leads to one way, in which is down from.
I said, and I'm sorry to talk over you, but I was going to say, I said it earlier that like, what was the money for? I mean, that's precisely the point. Like, that's why he's spending it on the liquor, and that's why he's, trying to get rid of it and give it to anybody, because it's like the more he gives it away, the more he'll feel like I'm not at fault for my friend dying.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just obviously is only temporary. You know, like taking a shot is only temporary. Buying whiskey and fish and chips with your friends is only temporary, and it slowly consumes him. I mean, as you were mentioning, like he is a sympathetic character. So when he's talking to Frankie in the early scenes, he mentions how Frankie's mother always liked Gypo. And that's something that he already feels kind of guilty for even thinking about turning Frankie in. And then that's kind of the through line, is that like he's fucked everything up. He's thrown all the money away. He turned in his best friend who got killed. And it kind of leads into the final scene where atonement from Frankie's mother is really the only thing that is salvation for him.
Yeah, he's got that classic Christ scene where he's like, your mother forgave me, you know?
Frankie, your mother forgives me. So, yeah. I love the ending shot. He gets caught, he escapes, and they shoot him, and he just manages to get to a church. And that's where Frankie's mother is, after the funeral. That's where she's just praying by herself. And he makes it there, still shot, about to die. And he has that Christ pose, like you said. And he asks for forgiveness, and she gives it to him. And that's his atonement, like right before he dies. And I've always loved that final 2-minute scene. And it is, so that final scene is featured in The Departed, Scorsese's The Departed, in a scene, which is totally understandable. The opening quote references The Departed in this movie. And so it definitely makes sense that Scorsese is a huge fan of this movie and references it when he makes his own Irish Boston crime drama.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Of course, I felt that watching this, and I felt, okay, I'm understanding The Departed even more, you know, by seeing this film. God, Scorsese is such a legend. It's fucking crazy. I wanted to say,
segue really quick. Physical media spotlight. This is my newest pickup. I think you're going to like this one. Speaking of Scorsese, this just came out from Imprint Films. It's an Australian film distributor. It's a box set. It says Martin Scorsese's Films of Faith. So it's got Last Temptation of Christ, Kundun, and Silence. So this awesome box set, hard case, basically opens up like a Bible. It's got 3 movies in there, and this new hardcover book of like new essays about his films of faith. So it's entirely Scorsese of his movies, but from the religious aspect.
I mean, there's more films that he, you know, has faith involved with. You're saying these are just the films that are like solely about.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
I mean, so it's got the quote from Scorsese on the back. My whole life has been movies and religion. That's it. Nothing else. So
Awesome.
I love this box set. So I've actually never seen Kundun. So it's going to be a first time watch for me for that.
I think it's Kundun. Yeah.
Kundun.
Yeah. I don't know. But I watched that one time in the Films of Martin Scorsese class at College of DuPage when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I kind of can't remember it, but I remember it being very scenic.
Yeah, it's about the Buddha. I would hope so.
Yeah.
Or the Dalai Lama. And so, yeah, Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
On the cover. Fantastic. I haven't seen Silence since the theater, so I'm excited to rewatch that one. So this is my favorite physical media that I've acquired recently. So very excited to check out all 3 on Blu-ray. So
that's cool. Yeah. If you're listening and not watching, you can see that on our YouTube page. We always post our video portion of this to our YouTube page, which is at remainderspod.com. You can access that.
Nice segue, man. That was good marketing. I like that.
How about it? Yeah. Come on now, everybody. Get on that Remainders train.
Love it. What did you think of the fog in this movie? And
amazing. Incredible. I love that shit too. When we'll talk about it in a minute, but Maxine I just saw, and they do the classic 80s like fog all over the place and that like throughout the decades, like there's nothing that you can't enjoy about a good fog. I mean, these old films do it so well, because the best part about these old films is they're always in, you know, black and white, but they have the grain that's going over the fog too. So it's just like the mix of the grain and the grittiness of that and the fog, it just makes for such a beautiful you can't replicate that really. It's like it's such a you can, but with technology. But this is just like a certain like staple of the time.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you use too much technology, you get the remake of John Carpenter's Fog with CGI fog, and it's not feeling it.
Yeah, totally. We'll talk about it in a minute. I really have a lot to say about my viewing of Maxine over there at the Vista and how that went.
Was there fog in it?
Well, no, but
nice.
Played fucking while you're waiting there to see the film.
You texted me so excited that was the pre-game music for.
Oh man, it was so fucking good. Everything is done to the T for movie fans.
No, go for it. Tell me more about it, Esther. I'd like to hear it.
Well, let's finish up our discussion on The Informer. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure how much more there is to say. This film is great. It's my first watch, and I would love to see it again because there's a lot that I'm missing. I'm just watching it, on the surface level, but there's a lot of characters that mean a lot and what drives them in this film, right? So we've got like the leader of the Republican Guard is actually in a relationship with the guy that gets killed, that was informed on. There's a lot of people who have a lot of stake in a lot of things in this film, and it's kind of hard to follow it all. But one thing you can follow for sure is the story of Gypo, and it's the main story, of course. But as most good movies do, they have all of these little like smaller characters that have other things, and that's pushing them forward in the story as well. I'll talk about this more later too, but I've been rewatching Lost with my girlfriend that just got added to Netflix. And, she was talking about when they went and pitched that film, to get it aired. And she was saying something like that first episode was like over $10 million to shoot back in 2004. And, to sell that story, they basically said like, it's like built in, there's all of these characters. There's something for everybody, in a big ensemble cast. I'm not saying The Informer's an ensemble cast or anything. I'm just saying like, it makes you realize like how important it is to have other characters that are just as important, even if you don't realize it, because you're not watching it as the main character. You know what I mean? Everybody has to kind of work off of this story that's propelling it to whatever conclusion you're going to get to,
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see how they get about it. And then at the end of the day, it's like it all is about Gypo's reaction though to everything. So it's all just kind of to propel that atonement and that guilt forward. And that's what I love about it so much.
Well, but that even like the small role, you're kind of like, well, why is this guy in here like pumping up Gypo? Like, what does it just, I think, what does that do? Right. Well, it serves his ego to make him feel like he's not, a shithead for ratting on his friend. But it also shows you a little bit more about what they're fighting for when he turns on him and says, "Hey, I'm more, for Ireland or whatever, and I'm not his friend at all. I was duped by him." So it serves a lot of purposes, but on the surface level, you think, oh, it's just this hanger on who's just like a funny character. But really, there's a lot of reasons for that character to be in this film.
No, love it. It's fantastic. All right. Yeah. I mean, that's all I got. Definitely one of my favorite John Ford movies. It just really is. It's one that stuck with me for a long time. It is the atmosphere, and mention again, Victor McLaglen's performance. Definitely one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, I think the way you sold me on this being our pick of the week is like, we got to see I gotta revisit the drunken exploits of Victor McLaglen, and I said, "Oh, I'm in." Right. I'm all for drunken escapades. But yeah, this is the first John Ford film that we've covered here on Remainders, and as I mentioned earlier, this is the 60th episode, so that's pretty cool. Introducing a new director in here and a huge one. So it's kind of, there's so many great movies out there. It's like it's funny to think like we missed a John Ford film in that 60 episodes, but there's more to come. There's just so much out there to cover.
What John Ford would you choose first?
I don't know. You think we got to do The Searchers? Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I mean, it's the most popular. I'm sure it's been done a billion times, but it's most popular for a reason.
Young Mr. Lincoln.
That's one I like a lot. I haven't seen.
I like that one a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
A little Henry Ford action is so good.
Is Rio Bravo? God, I would feel like an asshole. Is Rio Bravo John Ford too? Somebody out there listening is like, "Fuck you," because
I know, right?
They know immediately.
Yeah, right. It is.
It is. Yeah.
No. Of course, Howard Hawks.
Oh, Howard Hawks.
I just looked it up.
We haven't covered any Howard Hawks films either. Or did we do Maltese Falcon?
We did not do Maltese Falcon. We talked about it though. So.
Okay. Anyway, there's a lot to cover, guys. There's a lot here.
This is the True Video Store, so we run the gamut of all films. So sometimes the details slip through. So, but yeah, Howard Hawks. Yeah, John Carpenter. Huge fan of Howard Hawks and John Ford. So that's why it's always the through line with so many of these movies. So.
And by the way, Howard Hawks, I don't think did Maltese Falcon. That was how I fucked this up. John Huston, of course. God damn it! Everybody out there, give me a break. It's early this morning. Yeah. It's early. Okay, I promise that I know my movies, or at least I think I do.
It is early for you sometimes. I mean, what time do you get up in the morning?
I was up this morning at 4 a.m.
Oh, look at you, man. That's awesome.
Well, I had a weird schedule because being an artist out here, that was the point of it all. I get to do whatever the fuck I want. That's why yesterday I went to go see Maxine at 12:30 in the afternoon. I mean, that's really it. It's like I don't want any boss. I'm going to work as hard as I can to have a career for myself. So there's no boss telling me what to do. And the funny thing is, I don't have any time to do anything that I want to do because I'm so fucking busy. But yesterday I got so much done. It was like such a fun day because I got to go see that film over at the Vista. And I actually did take that time out for myself and said, you know what? Halt to everything. Go see this movie. Go enjoy yourself. And man, I was like in heaven. It was so good. God, if you're out there and you like the movies, go see a film at the theater. My God, it's such people say it all the time. Go see a film at the theater, but it's like, go see it at the right theater too. You know what I mean? The music box, and how could you ever not feel good about going there?
I mean, all right, let's wrap up The Informer.
Okay.
Thumbs up for me on The Informer. Fantastic. I want to hear more about your Maxine experience. But when you're saying the theater, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion. It's like we are lucky to be in very close both of us, close proximity to some of the best theaters in the country. It's definitely not the case for a lot of people because AMC for a lot of people is the only option. And I'm pro AMC, but it just makes me that much more grateful to be close to historic, awesome theaters like the Vista and the Music Box.
You're so right. I mean, and I can understand that, everywhere in the world, the most recent, the oldest theater may be, an AMC from the 1990s. I understand that that isn't everybody's backyard like Los Angeles and Chicago, but I will say regardless, my nephew was in Los Angeles and I was showing him to all, he's wants to be in film, and I was showing him to all these great theaters that we got, the Los Feliz 3, the Vista, New Beverly, and a billion more. But he goes back home to Plainfield, and after his little stay in Los Angeles, and he's sending me pictures of an empty theater in Plainfield seeing movies. I mean, he's seeing them just the way he is out here, but the difference is so crazy. It's like, wow, nobody is going to the movies anymore.
No, definitely not. I mean, it depends on when he's going and which theater he's going to, but it's I don't know. It's hard to gauge. I don't know. But with the way the dirty secret of movies is that they always track them money rather than ticket sales to mask it, to make it seem like people are always still going to theaters or attendance is always up. But it's like, a ticket now is $17 compared to even when we were younger in high school. It was like a fraction of that, and then way less even before that. So that's kind of always been the way they perverse it to make it confusing on how many people are actually going to the theater. But I think it's definitely at a low point recently, aside from a few outliers. So
yeah, well,
everybody's going to see Inside Out too, but aside from that, it's not a whole lot, I think.
Yeah, and it's different too, I guess, when you have kids and what they want to see. Everybody's lives are different, but for me, I chose this life to to do these kind of things, and I'm so glad I did because I'll just tell you quickly about it. So I've been going a lot more to the movies. Lately, I realized that the value in the $13.50 that I spend on the ticket in my life is worth it. I'd rather forego eating for the day than miss out on a movie sometimes. And it's got to be something I like. Just like when I buy music, it's got to be a vinyl that I really care about, I want to hold it in my hand. I want to read stuff, I got to be inspired. So you got to consume stuff too, if I want to put good things out, I got to put good things in. And I really wanted to see Ty West was doing a talk at the Vista when it opened a couple weeks ago, and I missed it, and I had to miss it because I had another engagement, but I could have bought tickets. I was like on the thing to get them, and I would have loved to see that. But either way, I was excited to see Maxine. I had seen both of the first movies in the trilogy, Pearl and X, and recently too, not that long ago, like a year ago. So it's kind of like a new to me, and I was so excited about Maxine, but like this was the best one.
Okay. Nice.
And Mia Goth is so fucking good. She's like insanely good and so fearless. And just the experience of going to that theater, everybody in there is a movie fan. It's renovated, but it's still classic. And like I said, at the beginning of it, somebody comes out and says, turn off your fucking phone, turn it to silence. Or what we like better is if you turn it off entirely, which is what I always do. I just and it's the best because you feel like, okay, they're telling me that like I'm going to get thrown out and banned for life if I have my phone on. So there's no excuse. You have to turn off your phone. And it's like, it's freedom, to sit there and enjoy a film. And I don't think many people would do that if they weren't told. And then the movie is explained that there's going to be 15 minutes or so of like trailers. So, dude, they had the trailer for the original Terminator, and all of this is the original stuff. Like it's all Tarantino buying up original trailers and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
the original trailer for the Terminator. When I saw Once Upon a Time in the West, they had the original trailer for The Thing. Ooh. I mean, it's chock full of everything you want. And then they got like cartoons. And a lot of times it's like old Looney Tunes stuff. But this time it was like this old Italian like little cartoon that they had. And it was like a guy like chopping. It's called like The Butcher. And because it's like a horror themed. And he's just like, fuck you. And he's like cutting off things, and he's cutting off his arm and shit. It's like awesome, awesome. And it's all curated with like the beginning of it. You go in there and it's got like these great 80s themes playing. And of course, like I said, and I texted you, Big Trouble in Little China's like awesome theme song is playing, and it just puts you in the mood right away. So on top of seeing a great movie, it's just start to finish everything that it's just fun. I don't know how else to say it. It's just fun. And I walked out of there midday and I got so much shit done afterwards. Cause I was like, I was skipping down the street after I saw it. That's my 2 cents on seeing Maxine. Go see that film if you like horror films, if you like, something that's familiar, but also pretty innovative as well.
I mean, yeah, it's been definitely a big hit in the horror community. So I remember when you saw X last year, and at the time you had not watched Pearl.
No.
So you watched, so you obviously like Pearl as well, but you put Maxine would be top of your ranking. I've not seen
Maxine's the best by far in them. Awesome. I mean, they're both good. I'd like to revisit all of them now that I've seen them all together. But yeah, I think I liked X better than I liked Pearl, which people will probably say you're crazy for.
Rankings are pretty varied. I've seen people put all three at the top, like different type of rankings. So it's
they're all fucking amazing. But if you got to choose,
Yeah.
Give me a good theater going experience of yours lately.
I'd love to hear that. Yeah, I got one. I also just want to say your quote about skipping a meal to go to a movie. Like that quote should just be like on our podcast website.
I mean, it's true. Because right now it's not like I'm flush with like $1 billion to do anything I want, but I'm realizing like I skipped seeing movies for the last 2-3 years while I've been building my business out here, and it's no more. I can't do that to myself anymore. I have to have some fun in my life. And one of my favorite things is going down the street, walking down the street and seeing a movie at the Vista. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Skip that sandwich. Go to the theater.
That's
Love
right.
it.
Enjoy every sandwich,
Enjoy
as
every
Warren
sandwich.
Zevon would say. But skip one.
Well, to be honest, I actually haven't been to the theater too much in the last couple of weeks. I'm just kind of like on a downswing. I mean, I've been watching stuff at home a little bit, still trucking my way through The Walking Dead. So I have AMC that the pass, which I think actually is great. Like I said, I still like AMC quite a bit at their monthly pass. The membership, it's like only $20 a month, and you get to go see 3 movies a week. And for the AMC I go to for like the Dolby Cinema downtown in Chicago, it's like one ticket is already like $19 or $20. So it's like, even if yes. Well, that's like in terms of like size and sound, that is kind of one of my go-to screens in the city.
I actually saw Vertigo right before the pandemic there. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So like for like big budget stuff, that's where I always go. And the membership is good. It's like it's worth it, and there's no like extra fees or anything. So I did on that giant screen, I did check out Bad Boys for Life and Ride or Die. And it was fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Love a good Jerry Bruckheimer big budget Bad Boys franchise film. Was
a very refreshing because it definitely still feels like a 90s action movie. So I don't know, like if you like the first two or the first three, sorry, this one definitely keeps up with that vibe. So it was definitely a fun time to watch that one. So
cool. Yeah,
it's always fun to get still blasted in the face with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence kicking ass. So that was definitely a fun time. But yeah, I haven't been to the Music Box in a couple weeks.
I thought you just slept there. I thought that was actually like where you lived, but
no, the last time I was there was the last time I was there was for that Godzilla marathon. So I think I spent a month worth of time there in that one day. So and that was such a kick-ass time. I loved it so much. So
cool.
Yeah, laying low. Still, like I said, trekking my way through Walking Dead, which has been fantastic. I'm on season 6 now.
Damn, you're really pushing through all that.
I know, yeah. It's been I do love the soap opera vibes of it, so it's been enjoyable to check that out. Yeah, looking forward to Riot Fest actually here in Chicago.
Got tickets?
I do have tickets. I got tickets early, so like they're actually like really cheap. I bought them like last year, and like kind of like right after last year's went on sale. So they had like a little bit of shifting in Chicago. There's Riot Fest is always not struggle, but definitely finding a home is an ongoing thing when it's a kind of a community set concert.
Yeah, I heard it's like in Bridgeport now.
Yeah. So
what do you think about that? Is that a thing for you or no? Don't care.
I mean, I love Riot Fest, so I'm down with it wherever it goes. But yeah, it is outside of the city and it is technically a suburb, but it's really not that far or anything. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. So I think if the promoters, and everybody working hard on that, such a great.
Oh yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's a huge business. I mean, all the bands need to be paid, all the workers. Like the city of Chicago, I'm sure is paid somewhat in there, and that probably has there's probably politics involved. It can't be an easy thing to put on that show.
No, well, I mean, even without all those bumps, it's still not an easy thing. And then you add in that extra layer of Chicago and everything. So,
right.
Looking forward to that. The Offspring playing Smash all the way through. That'll be definitely a fun time.
Oh, damn, dude. Hell yeah.
Throwback gateway album for my younger self as a little child getting into more contemporary music. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, would that be in your music pick of the week or what?
It's not, but it should be. Just that whole album. I got something else, but maybe I'll just listen to Smash today and put that whole album on the back.
Are we ready to roll into the music choices, or do you got anything else you want to bring up?
No, we're talking music. Love it.
All right, let's do it. This is the for everybody listening and has made it this far. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. We do like to talk about our lives every once in a while, what we're consuming. And so we talked a little bit about the movies. Now we transform into music, which goes hand in hand with the movies. And this little segment, we have our music picks of the week. So Patrick, what are you listening to? What are you consuming?
I'm staying with the 80s, continuing on from last week, and shocker, from the Dudes of Wrath. So this week, I'm going with Trick or Treat by Fastway, which is a kick-ass 80s rock and roll hair metal song. It is the title track from the movie Trick or Treat from 1986, the horror musical with Gene Simmons, little Ozzy Osbourne. Crazy metalhead movie, and it's actually pretty fun, but again, like some movies from the 80s, the music outshines it, and this song from Fastway is an absolute banger that I put on my running list all the time because it does nothing but get my ass moving. So have you seen Trick or Treat or listened to the soundtrack?
Man, I don't know what it is about the universe, but lately it's been doing this shit where like somebody mentions something and it gets brought up again. So,
well, that's a psychological thing. When you hear something, then you notice it. So
well, maybe,
like
yeah. But yeah, like if you could buy a brand new car and then you see it everywhere, that kind of thing. Okay. So I have a friend who runs this Instagram account called Oh, I Had That. Do you know that account?
Yeah, I thought, yeah, it's great. Like that.
So it's a good friend of mine, and so he's done really well with that account and talking about things that we would have had in the 80s as kids and in toys and movies and stuff like that. And he keeps on wanting to be on the podcast. And I keep on being like, oh, I'll talk to Pat about it. And then I never bring it up to you.
No. I was going to say, if he's listening right now, it's not like I've been shooting this down.
I know. And I told him, I said, it's my fault. But actually,
you can just blame it on me. That's fine.
If we wanted to have an episode where we brought on another guest, that would be the one, because he just said it last week after our Humanoids from the Deep episode.
Oh,
like, have you guys talked yet about Trick or Treat?
Oh, look at this guy.
And I know. And I said, dude, I haven't ever seen that film. And here you are talking about this song. So, yeah.
Serendipitous. So,
I think we might have to do a crossover episode with Oh, I Had That and Trick or Treat.
I mean, yeah, it's a very fun movie. And yeah, like I said, the soundtrack is what I revisit more. So, I mean, I've only watched the movie a couple times, but the soundtrack I've revisited multiple times. It's such a great vibe. So I definitely am down with that. So,
okay, well, I got to see that film. We'll talk more about that if you feel comfortable with that. Maybe we'll invite another voice into the podcast for one episode and see how it goes. But I can't wait to hear the song. It sounds like a good recommendation from you. If knowing that you said it's better than the movie, I'll have that.
Well, I just more so just like you're more likely to come across the song than the movie itself. So
gotcha. Which is why I haven't seen the film, I guess, right?
Sometimes music outshines the movie. Kind of, I mean, that's exactly the case with last week with the song "Shocker" from the Dudes of Wrath and that supergroup. Sometimes that song is definitely more popular than the movie itself. So
yeah, I mean, especially with the makeup of the band members, right?
That's a thing that just doesn't happen anymore. Why aren't there more original songs from kick-ass bands for like made specifically for movies? And then like that movie's, I don't know. There's just something
it wasn't for movies, but like a super group, one would think of like the Traveling Wilburys and stuff like that.
Yeah. But I guess I'm more thinking of like for movies and like kind of like how songs were like specifically made for them, and then like that was kind of the lead of the soundtrack. Soundtracks barely even exist anymore, and if they do, I'm certainly not coming across them.
Well, I mean, you got to watch Maxine. I mean,
that's true.
Again, it's older music that's being thrown into it, but yeah, still.
What's that? What's the song that you recommended after watching X? Is the Robert Palmer?
Oh man,
that was the closing song. Yeah, something like that.
Doctor, give me the news. I got it. Bad taste of loving you.
Man, summing up the vibe of that trilogy perfectly. So I'm excited to finish up that last one. So yeah.
Oh, dude, you're gonna love it.
Trick or Treat by Fastway. Awesome that you're coming across this from multiple angles. So now you're going to be that much more excited when you hear it. So
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, thank you for that pick of the week. As you said, I can't wait to hear it. We do have a podcast specific playlist on Spotify.
Our jukebox, I love it.
That's the Remainders Jukebox, and it's an eclectic group of songs based on our recommendations every week. So if you can't go back and listen to all 60 episodes and write down, the pick of the week, we don't fret. They're all included in the playlist on Spotify. And you can get to that by going to our website, www.remainderspod.com. All right.
Guaranteed good time.
What are
you listening to?
Definitely a mind bender. I would imagine if you smoke pot, like this would be like your favorite playlist of all time because it's so fucking weird.
Or if you're drinking in a pub. So
yeah, that too. Yeah. I've listened to this playlist many times. I'm drinking wine as the sun goes down. I'll tell you that.
Ooh, nice.
Very enjoyable.
Love it.
Okay, so I've had a hard time picking because there's a few songs that are kind of just like so good off this album, and I'll just tell the story really quickly of why I'm choosing this band. So back in the day when I was playing music a lot in Chicago, there were a lot of great bands that were out there and we would play with, but they weren't always like the punk bands, or they had come from punk bands, but they're kind of like doing something different, So it'd be like, oh, cool, this was like the lead singer of this great punk band, but they're kind of doing this like acoustic-y thing. And this band became, I think it was spawned from a bunch of punk bands. And like, again, talking about band members coming together, they decided to do this sort of like Americana, sort of like soul, but like also rock and roll band. And I saw them one time at the House of Blues Chicago. If you've been there, you know what like an empty House of Blues Chicago would look like and feel like. I saw them play in front of like probably 30 people in that place. And it was epic as fuck. And it was like one of those things where it's like, man, the whole world is missing out on this show. They had backup singers, like 3 like women backup singers playing with them and singing. When you hear the song, you'll understand why that's so great for the band. But the band's called Catfish Haven. Have you heard of Catfish Haven before?
I have not, but it's a fantastic
very
name.
Under the radar Chicago. I mean, but if you know them, you love them. They kind of stopped playing, I think, like around 2008. So they haven't been around a while, but their stuff is on Spotify, probably everywhere else too, as of, I think, semi recently. And I've gotten back into the record recently. And I don't know, I was thinking about them. And I'm like, wondering if their music is online, and it was. So that's my pick of the week, is this album called Tell Me. And the song I'm going to choose on there is the song Tell Me, which is track number 2. Really great stuff. But I would also recommend the first song, I Don't Worry. And then there's this like really slow song called Down by Your Fire on here. That's just a really beautiful song. But my pick that we'll put on the playlist is called Tell Me, and I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's up your alley.
Oh, hell yeah. A little intimate show at the House of Blues.
Yeah. Can you imagine 30 people? You know what it's like in that place. It's huge.
Yeah. Those are always the ones that kind of stick with you that much more. So yeah, that's awesome. That's true. When was that, you said? Oh
man, that was probably like 2007 or something like that. My sister Jacqueline worked with this bass player. His name was Miguel. I haven't really kept up with him. I wonder what he's doing, but he was the bass player, and he was just really, really fun guy. Just kind of around a lot. She worked at Shuba's, and so he would be in there all the time having beers and PBRs and old styles, and we'd go and we'd drink and talk about music. It was cool.
Good old Shuba's, Chicago.
It's been a while since I've been into that place, man. But that's a cool little venue in the back too.
It's that's a perfect size venue. It's one of my favorite. I'm not even that far from it, and their programming is still great. So it's like you can always, even if you're just hanging out on a night and you just feel like going to watch something, it's like the Empty Bottle and Shuba's are always kind of the 2 places where you can expect to see somebody good, even if you have no idea who's playing. So that's
I did see Elvis Costello in that room, so be jealous.
What? Really?
Oh yeah.
At Shuba's, you saw Elvis Costello?
And he was playing a piano instead of a guitar. It was pretty fucking epic, man.
Oof. Yeah, those are the special shows. Man, I had no idea. Maybe it reminded me that, like, I know Bob Dylan played the Metro a couple times, and that would have been where it's at. But Schubas is definitely smaller than that. That would have been.
Oh yeah,
when was that?
Like Shuba's like probably 200, 250, maybe less.
If even that. When
Gosh,
was that?
I can't remember a ton when that was, but I think the reason he was a piano is like I think he did like maybe like a Burt Bacharach like song album or something, and it was like,
I think that I vaguely remember him doing like an album of Burt covers. So
yeah, maybe it was that, and but I can't remember the year. It was awesome though. My sister would get me into a lot of those shows. She works at Lincoln Hall still, and like every once in a while when I'm in Chicago, I'll be able to catch a show over there. That's another great venue. I mean, we could talk Chicago venues all day long, but yeah, Shuba's nice place.
Hell yeah, love it, and also affordable still. But the way concerts are now these days, like so astronomically expensive, at least for the big ones, the majority of them, going to a chill place like Shuba's is where it's at.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's like, recently my brother was telling me about like, a lot of like these big bands and like showing up in small pubs or like small like restaurants or whatever. And just like, like, oh, they just happened to be there with a camera and like, like they caught it for social media. And it's like, oh my God, like there's Chris Martin in some small pub and something like that. It's like, of course, I think it's curated, but at the same time, it's kind of fun to think about like, back when there wasn't really social media going on, Elvis Costello was playing a room like Shuba's. And I love it when bigger acts are doing that kind of shit, like the small room stuff. Green Day did that a lot, and kind of going back to the roots and playing these small places is real fun.
Yeah. I know TLB has that card up its sleeve.
Yeah, because it's just forever small groups, small rooms for us.
Makes it that much more special.
But that's right. You miss out, you might not ever see us again. That's the thing. It's like you get on board with it because it could be gone tomorrow.
Well, I don't want to picture that world. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Well, like, did you ever think you'd see the Scissors again? Well, you might not ever again. You might want to go to that show in September with One Life at Cobra Lounge, because you never know. Like, we haven't played a show since 2019, and that was to support a record.
Yeah, and to all the listeners, I've been busting Darren's balls since 2019 to play more Scissors. So, sometimes it works out in the, you gotta poke and prod a little bit. So
yeah, I guess it was. So I have you to thank for us playing one more show, and it'll be fun though. It'll be fun to be there and see all my friends. If you're listening and you're in the Chicago area, my old band, the Scissors, will be playing a bit of a reunion show on September 14th at the Cobra Lounge in Chicago to support our friends and my brother's band, One Life, who's putting out a vinyl record.
Fuck yes. What a fucking lineup that's going to be. Love it.
It's going to be a fun night, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you too. So that'll be cool.
Hell yes. Love it.
All right. Well, like I said at the beginning of this episode, I'm not going to rat on you today, but just keep one eye open, Pat, because I know I'm up to your tricks,
Okay. If you do get more than $1,800, that's all I'm saying. So.
Is that all I'm worth?
Yeah.
$1,800?
I'd hope a little bit more than that. All right.
Yeah. Oh, you're priceless, my man. You're priceless.
Oh, look at this guy. Love it.
Cool. Well, all right. We'll be back, next time with another film. Who knows? Maybe with a guest. We'll see what happens.
All right, brother. Good talking to you.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See ya.